Right, hello and welcome to the Manufacturing and Engineering Forum, and we're talking about sustainability. And I've got we've got an excellent panel here. I'll introduce myself. I'm Zoe Darlington. I own a business called Pure Improvement, and we help manufacturing and engineering businesses to become leaner and greener. So using CI techniques to improve operational and sustainability. So we've got 4 guests today. We've got Daniela, Adrian, Helen McGloin, sorry, trying to get Tiffany Dawson, and Duncan Reed, isn't it? It is Duncan Reed.
Yes.
On the screen, so I can't read it. So, and yeah, if we want to go around the panel, and you can all introduce yourselves. So I'll start with the person that I can see on the left, which is Duncan. So if you want to go first.
Hi, thanks Zoe. Yes, I'm Duncan Reed. I'm a mechanical engineer by training, but for the last 15 years I have been an energy consultant. So mainly working in commerce and industry, initially for the Carbon Trust, doing over 200 surveys for the Carbon Trust, and more recently working for local authorities where they have schemes to help SMEs to reduce their energy, and also ESOS for larger companies, and now SECA, which has just come in, which I'm sure we'll speak of in a bit, and now starting to look at net zero strategies.
Fascinating. Okay, Tiffany, you go next.
I am also a mechanical engineer by training. My name's Tiffany Dawson. I have also changed careers. So I am now a career coach for women in STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and maths. And as I said, I was a mechanical engineer, but in the construction industry for about 8 years across Australia and the UK. And as one of few women in all of those workplaces, I guess I faced a lot of the very common challenges that women in male-dominated environments face. And the more and more senior I became, the more and more I realized that this was actually a challenge that was really difficult to overcome without any help. And I was so lucky in my workplaces that I was able to receive the help and coaching that I did. And all the tools that I learnt were really simple, and I got really angry that no one had taught me this stuff before. And I thought, how many other women out there could make use of this incredible knowledge? So that's where my passion for helping women in STEM comes from, and that's what I do full time. So I now coach women either privately or through corporate group workshops. So I've done workshops with the likes of YouTube, Hargreaves Lansdown, Bureau Happold, just to name a few. And that is me in a nutshell. I'll be speaking today about the effect on gender equality and diversity when it comes to sustainability in manufacturing.
Brilliant. Thank you. Helen, do you want to go next?
Hello everyone, my name's Helen McGloin. I work at Cinderhill Farm. My background is as a manufacturing engineer. I worked for a number of years at Rolls-Royce, both within additive manufacture and within automation. And last summer I made what felt like quite a scary move, but an exciting one, to start at Cinderhill Farm. The company has 15 employees, and we make sausage rolls and pasties, so it's a great place to be. My job title is Head of Advancement, and it covers all areas of manufacturing improvement, sustainability improvement, site improvements as well, really taking the business into its kind of next stage and its next level. We are actually based on a farm, so Cinderhill Farm itself is an eco-farm, and there are many initiatives that we bring in both in the farmland around us, all the way through to how we manufacture, produce, package and deliver our products. So it is something that matters in everything we do, but obviously is a very different perspective being in a place with 15 people to where I was working before at Rolls-Royce, obviously. So resources is a really interesting interesting challenge, but also how quickly you can turn around some ideas as well. So hoping to give some insight into what small businesses can do and what they can achieve when it comes to a sustainability agenda.
Excellent, thank you, Helen. Daniela, next. So do you want to introduce yourself? Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, so I'm Daniela Andrian. I come from I'm an engineer in the telecommunication field. So I worked 25 years for this company, starting in R&D. And what's funny is I started on this GSM network that didn't exist at that moment. And you all know that without your phone, you can do anything right now, right? And I changed my career, and I'm now, I have a consulting company, so I'm making consulting, coaching, and training. And about this sustainability, when I was invited to join, I would like to talk about this sustainability in terms of services, not in terms of engineering or manufacturing, since there's something there, okay? So this could be the best I can give anyway.
Excellent, thank you, Daniela. Okay, so what we'll do is we've got about 5 questions, and that will just generate conversation. We'll just generate conversation around that, and I'll go across each of the panelists and ask for their input into each of these questions, but we'll keep it quite loose and quite an informal decision. If any of the guests want to please raise your hand or pop it in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat, and then a little bit later we might open it up if you feel comfortable with doing that, and let some of the guests get involved too. So that's how we'd like to play it today. Okay, so the first question is, what does sustainability in engineering mean to you and your business or your clients? So Helen, do you want to go with that one?
Yes.
On you.
I'll start, yeah, why not? So sustainability for us as a business and for our clients, it's central to everything we do. So for the main thing for us is it's our first thought when it comes to what we do business. Sustainability in terms of engineering for us and in certain terms of manufacturing is how we protect the people, the community and the environment in which we work in. So that's the people who work for us. It's the physical environment around us. We are really lucky. We're in an area of outstanding natural beauty here in the Forest of Dean. So you clearly see the effects that things like climate change are having on how we do things. And then also the community in which we live is really vital. We are a small employer, but we would like to stand and be seen as a central one for where we work. So understanding that underpins everything that we do, it affects all of the decisions from how we manufacture through to how we deliver our products, and it's also how we find the people we sell to. We can be quite picky in terms of our customers, our retailers, because they have to share that same ethos as us, both in terms of their traceability and their support for the environment. There's not much point us doing what we can and then finding who we sell to do not support that as well. So for us, sustainability is something that underpins everything we do. It's not to say we're there and we're finished. We have got so far to go. There is so much still that we want to do. But it affects every decision that we make, how we introduce leaner principles, so within manufacturing to improve our processes, as I said, all the way to how we deliver our products as well.
That's interesting because you touched on choosing your customers. I mean, I know, I've spoken to lots of businesses, and, I know that supply chain management is a key issue, but that's quite interesting that you raised that, that you actually look to who you would sell to as well. So how does that go about? I mean, what kinds of checks and balances do you put into place to screen your potential customers? That must be quite hard, especially if you've got another to place. Yeah. And
obviously some people approach us and they will have different ethoses or routes that they want to take it with their business. That's okay, it can be a discussion. But in terms of those that we might actively approach, the first thing is to be really nosy when you go on their websites. Obviously, you can find out a huge amount of information that people share in terms of what they stand for, and that's really important to us. It's always firstly one of our senior managers who will go and meet our customers, and it is always a face-to-face meeting. We get a feeling of the place we're going to, so this can be everything from a small deli shop all the way up to a large motorway services who might end up selling hundreds of our products, and meet people who are there. And that's not just the people in charge, but people who are actually selling the product. Do they support values? Do they even understand that those values are there? Interesting, for example, going to a co-op and you go and meet the staff, for example, and have those conversations, and do they understand some of those key principles that the co-op will stand for? And that's where you can see that your products will be sold in the correct way to the customers, the end customer. So really it is a bit of detective work, being a bit nosy, and also meeting as many people as possible who are part of that system to have those discussions.
Brilliant. So Tiffany, so do you want me to repeat the question? What does sustainability in engineering and manufacturing mean to you and your business or your clients?
Yeah, so I'll answer this in the frame of why does it matter to my clients? So as I mentioned before, I work with women in science, tech, engineering and maths to help them with their career progression. And it's really interesting, this question, in terms of women in engineering. A lot of the women who come to me for coaching, they have kind of lost a bit of their fulfillment in their roles. And usually that happens in the middle of their careers, and they realize, okay, they've spent the last few years learning how to do this engineering job, but now they've kind of lost that purpose. And when I encourage them to think back to why they studied engineering in the first place, really interestingly, more often than not, the reason they went into it was because they wanted to have a bigger impact in the world. They wanted to align their own personal values to the work that they wanted to do. A lot of them go into it wanting to solve the world's biggest problem of climate change. So I guess, this is a manufacturing forum, but I guess it's really important to bring it back to how does the topic of sustainability motivate our staff? How does the topic of sustainability help us to create a work environment that will really motivate our staff members to put in the best of their ability? And if their personal values align with the company values, then that's where you're going to get the most out of them. I know that gender diversity is something that's a hot topic at the moment. Most engineering companies are trying to be as diverse as possible, whether that is to look good in front of their customers or whether they actually really care. To me, it doesn't matter. Either way, if we can reach gender diversity, then that's beneficial to everyone. So in answer to your question, sustainability is really important to my clients. I'd say surprisingly, almost every single one of my coaching clients who I've worked with have mentioned the fact that they want to do something that has a bigger impact to the environment through their day-to-day work.
And I can completely relate to that. And I actually found myself in exactly the same position where you kind of start to question, you lose motivation in what you're doing. You start to question, well, why am I doing this? What am I doing it for? And I've done exactly that, where I kind of looked at my values and then tried to sort of work with my business to align it to my values. And then that's that intrinsic motivation then, doesn't it? It taps into that, and that's what's absolutely key. And for motivation in people, so it's as from a leadership point of view, I think very, very important. And
yeah, absolutely. And I think if anyone here is signed on to this call, whether you're a panel member or a guest, you've probably signed on because you do have some sort of you know, other personal value outside of work where you do care about the environment and you want to learn more. So being able to marry up the two, your career goals and your personal goals, is so important.
Yeah. Danielle, do you have a...
Yeah, I could. Yeah. When I listened to you, Tiffany, I had the same question in my career since I started as an engineer, and we were just 4 among 60 people in our engineering school. And I was always surrounded by male, could we say, and I was always the only woman in the field, and I was part of the CTO of this big corporation in the technical side, and I was the only woman as a director there. So it's something really important and interesting to see, but it's about our value anyway. And for this sustainability, for me, it's really, now we all see those kinds of tests or things about the best place to work, you see, and all those kinds of KPI that didn't exist 10 years ago. And then I saw this big company where I was belonging to trying to put different objectives about this being greener and taking care of our productivity or our manufacturing, the way we sell things, and all the program we put, you know, to take care of employees and to be sure that everybody was okay where they were. So I think for me, this is a step-by-step way for the company and for the world today.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, completely agree. No, thank you, Daniela. Okay, so did I come to, oh, Duncan, I've not asked Duncan yet, have I? So Duncan, you go.
Okay, so my sustainability to me, personally, to my business, obviously I'm just a consultant, so it's something that's close to my heart in any case. So I try and be as sustainable as I can within my own sphere of influence. Sustainability to my clients, I hear what Helen says and Tiffany saying. It's great to hear that you're actually following the correct ethos. But what I find is I deal with a lot of SMEs and smaller companies who they want to follow sustainability, but there is that cost of sustainability. Can they afford to do it? So there's definitely a resistance that I see.
Oh, Duncan. Oh, sorry. Was you going to tell him the same? Was you? Closer to the microphone, you kind of cut out then, so maybe get closer to the mic.
Okay, how's that? Can you hear me now?
It's quite quiet. It's quite quiet. So it sounds like a...
I'll try and project my voice.
That's it. That's it. You've got it. You just came on.
Yeah. Okay. So what I've found over many years of going into many companies is there's a general will to want to do the right thing, but it's the cost of it. So it's definitely a barrier to getting people to embrace the sustainability. So my involvement really is quite specific in as much as I help identify areas where they can reduce their energy consumption. So obviously that reduces their carbon emissions, and obviously that is what part of sustainability is all about. I always have to dress that up as a cost saving because in a commercial world, it's the cost saving that gets the backing or the investment. So the Carbon Trust realised this, and one of the Carbon Trust's biggest failings, they paid for thousands of energy audits, of which I did several hundred. They were very successful at giving away a carbon energy audit, but they weren't very successful in encouraging investment. We obviously had the problem in 2008 where we had the general recession, and literally overnight everybody went from saying black is the new green and wanting to be seen to be carbon neutral to going into survival mode. And after 2008, for a number of years, I had people saying, well, you can show me a payback of 6 months, but I'm not going to invest because I don't know whether I'll be here next week. So from a purely technical point of view and a pragmatic point of view, it's quite a difficult thing to embed. I hear what Helen is saying, and where you're dealing with very much a public-facing business where people want to buy from green companies, that's a great incentive. But when you're in general manufacturing, making widgets and washers and this, that, and the other, your main concern is being profitable and still being viable. So it's a difficult one. I mean, there is the CSR and the reputational thing that's coming in, and that's the pressure that I think we need to start to bear on these companies. There are sticks which we can come to later, the legislation sticks that I'm involved with, but it's very much a stick and a carrot approach to get businesses, because businesses are there to make money. They're not there to save the planet. And I pick this up a lot in businesses. Some people want to do the right thing and some people embrace it, but it's the minority at the moment. I think it'll get more and more, because I think the message now, really in the last couple of years, that the damage that we're doing to the planet, etc., I think really is resonating with most people. So I think it is going to start to gain traction, but has to be done in a commercially viable way.
Yeah.
Duncan, do you think, do you think that's going to change very quickly?
Oh, have you frozen on us, Tiffany?
Tiffany's frozen. Should we come back to Tiffany? We'll come back to you, Tiffany. You're back.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I guess there's more and more transparency when it comes to this now. So there are forums and places online where people are exposing, what these gadgets are made of and where they're coming from and what factory conditions they're coming from. Like, I know that's very prevalent in the clothing market at the moment, being very transparent as to where all the materials come from, the whole, chain of where every single thing comes from, not just the piece of clothing, but like the tag that's attached to it. Is that becoming more and more prevalent in the manufacturing field as well?
I think it will do, because it will be customer-led.
Yeah.
And this is where we as customers have to start making informed choices. I mean, personally, I buy local wherever I can. And if my daughters come back with some Danish bacon, they get sent back to the shop to buy some British bacon. Because, we need to think about food miles, and we need to think about all of these things. And if we as the consumer do our bit, that is part of the pressure that we can exert on manufacturers, because if we stop buying it, they'll have to start manufacturing more locally. And I think the pandemic, if anything good came of it, has highlighted how globalization may not be the answer. When we didn't have the PPE because we needed to get it from abroad, well, actually, we ought to be making these things more local. And I'm hoping that if something good comes of it, then we can start to look more locally and seriously look at, as you say, the supply chain and the ethics of that supply chain. So no, you're absolutely right. I think if a factory making nuts and bolts can get away with it making them cheaply, they will do. If you stop buying them, then they'll have to change. And I think that's how we all need to push the agenda along.
Yeah, I think you've touched on a really important point there as well, both of you, and it's this, if it's customer facing, they tend to want to wear the badge and, promote themselves as being, sustainable and the good guys and whatnot, but then if you actually look at manufacturing, generally, you know, the brands, the things that we all recognise and see, is just a tiny proportion of what goes into that. You know, even if you look at a car, you know, it may be manufactured by Honda or Jaguar Land Rover, but all the equipment, all the machines, most of what goes into that car isn't actually manufactured by those companies. It's manufactured by the supply chain and the equipment that goes into it. You know, the machines that make those bits is in the supply chain. Now, those companies aren't customer facing, so they'll purely be looking at costs. So if they've got the values, then yes, you know, they may or may not, you know, embrace sustainability. But then how do we get businesses that are not yet ready to embrace sustainability to embrace sustainability? And you've touched on the cost saving element there. So I think that's leading up to our next question, actually, which is, does environmental sustainability hinder support or hinder economic growth? So I'll go Duncan, because we're kind of on a little bit of a roll there. So if you want to go first on that one. So.
Okay, then I would say, of course, it hinders, because it's a cost.
I would disagree with that, actually. But
it's a necessary cost, and we have to face it. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to be proved wrong, but I think most people see it as a cost, but it's something that we will have to do. And this comes on, you know, Tiffany mentioned about transparency. The various regulations and governments are going to bring forward various sticks to beat us with, which are the other side of that. There's the customer pushing people in that direction, and there is a regulation. And one of the transparency efforts is the SECA, Simplified Energy Carbon Reporting. So now large companies have to include a section in their annual report showing their carbon footprint and what they're going to do about it, and various other bits and pieces within that. But obviously that highlights and makes it known and brings to the board level the carbon footprint. So that is an area where some transparency is starting to be brought in. Obviously, we're hearing about the net zero target of the UK or the world or wherever, 2030, 2050. So doubtless there will be sticks to push people towards net zero, and people need to start thinking about how they may get their business to approach that. But it'll be a cost, but I think it's a cost that we have to bear.
Yeah, thank you. Helen, do you want to answer that one from your perspective? Does environmental sustainability support or hinder economic sustainability and growth?
I think there's two sides to it. Completely agree with Duncan in terms of some of the costs. For us, as I said, there's things that we would love to do, and there's things that we are actually able to do. So when it comes to the manufacturing side, we can make huge improvements to our environmental impact and our sustainability, which don't necessarily have to cost us that much. Lean principles is such an important kind of pillar when it comes to manufacturing. Anyone who works in manufacturing knows, you know, and it's all about reducing waste, reducing cost, improving quality, and improving your quantity of output as well. And those principles, while they were traditionally about saving you money, they can also save your kind of environmental act as well. I completely believe that those lean manufacturing principles, whether you do the 7 or 8 wastes for lean wastes, those are totally supportive of that. But on the other side of it, there is the cost for some of the things you would love to be able to do, but which you can't. Delivery is a big one for us. So we travel around the UK, and in doing that, obviously take our products to a variety of different places. And at the moment we have diesel vans that take it place. I am someone who's had an electric car for 3 years. I'd love for us to be able to do at least our local deliveries on an electric system. We have PV panels, we buy only renewable energy, we have air source heat pumps. These are all accessible to us. Buying vehicles that would reduce our impact is really hard, and the cost is far too high. And there's not enough grants or support available to do that. So I think there are two sides to it. And I know that's not helpful to not actually answer the question and say it supports or hinders, but I think there are principles that if we follow, as I said, kind of lean manufacturing and environmental improvements, we can reduce costs in what we do. But at the same time, we also have to be able to invest in some of these larger long-term options in order to succeed. And it needs support there. You know, if you're a small company and you only, your turnover, it might be $500,000. How are you going to get the money out to do some of these really large improvements? So I really think it's important that we reflect on what is possible for us to do as a business, and to make changes every year and see that incremental change. And to be able to stand by that, if you had customers or if you had other suppliers coming to you, to be able to say, we didn't just stop when we got PV panels in, you know, we went out again, we buy renewable electricity as well, and then we got an air source heat pump, and we keep improving each year. And some of those things might be really small, and it might be making sure that all of the toppers on your packaging are recyclable. But those things are important, and accounting for them as well. There's a really interesting thing that I think more businesses will start to do, which is through accounting report the triple bottom line. It's something, if you want to become a corporation B accredited, which many companies want to do, it shows your sustainable environmental and social impact is positive for a business, and you have to be able to report in accounting not only but also your environmental and social impact. And if we're reporting it, then we have to start, you know, it's a measure every year that we go back to, and that's really important to us. So I think it also helped us in terms of pushing us to do better each year. So I think environmental and sustainable actions, they may cost us more, but I think, as Duncan said, we have to do some of them. It has to be there. It can give us really great value straight away, but sometimes it's around that long term, making sure you're a business in 5-10 years time, and we've got to follow those principles. So I'm afraid I can neither support nor disagree, but hopefully that's the interesting answer for people.
Okay. Tiffany, do you want to answer that question as well? So thank you, Helen. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to admit, I'm not a manufacturing guru. I don't know the economics of it, but in terms of my view, looking at the bigger picture, so yes, there is a cost associated with, you know, selecting more environmentally friendly components for everything, but I know for a fact that a lot of consumers, they are happy to pay more for something that is environmentally friendly or supports the environment. So I guess I wonder whether, you know, just looking at the pure increase in cost is a short-term and kind of blinkered way of looking at it, when maybe you can actually pass on some of that cost to the consumer who are happy to pay extra. I don't know, maybe the economics don't work out. Maybe you can't sell it for as much as the increase in cost, but also there are more and more people who will choose to buy something for a more expensive price just because it's got the badge of it being green. So it's not just the increased cost that you can pass on to the consumer, but also that you might have more customers choose your product over someone else's. So I guess I would love to encourage the manufacturing field to think even bigger picture than just the increase in cost of each component. Bringing it back to, I guess, my expertise in the gender discussion, in terms of women as consumers, you might not be surprised to know that females in the UK hold the largest buying power, and but the stats are really interesting. So I've just got the stats up while you guys are talking. So women in the UK, they either make the purchase of or make the decision to purchase 92% of holidays, 65% of cars, 93% of food, 91% of homes, and 61% of computers. So if you are a manufacturing company that creates products that go into components that suit any of these markets, and you're not thinking about sustainability, and as I said before, it seems like, you know, being sustainable seems to be a really important thing to a lot of women these days, then maybe you are missing out on a massive market of people who want to buy your product. So that's something that I would encourage you all to think about.
Excellent. Yeah, no, thank you. That's definitely it's the thing that I find when it comes to ethical products is they do charge a premium, and they can charge a premium, and that's absolutely, you know, because a lot of people make that decision based on that. But then there's also a kind of where you want to influence the, a need to want to influence the mainstream as well, isn't there? Where you want to kind of make the general products more ethical and sustainable as well. And I guess there's those businesses. How do we get those businesses to change? And I totally agree with the sense that there can be a cost, which is what you were talking about, Duncan, but then I come from a lean manufacturing background, so I completely believe in reducing, improving efficiency and reducing reducing waste, for example, and that's a big cost saver. But yes, you're right, you know, if you're going to go down the sustainability route, you've got all kinds of things to sort of factor into consideration. Are you going to invest in PV panels? Are you going to invest in a new vehicle fleet, for example? You know, and these are all the challenges which long term will probably pay off, you know, and will probably save you money. But businesses very much are looking at that kind of, especially if they're in survival mode, which they very much are at the moment, and was after the 2008 crash, you know, are just thinking like, we just need to get through the next 6 months, you know. And that's, you know, how do we convince businesses that actually going down this route will help you, you know, but, you know, in the short to medium term. So I don't know whether, you know, anybody has the answer to that.
I think my thoughts on that are, it all has to be a multi-pronged attack, or you have to use the carrot and the stick. You have to use the carrot of reputation and wanting to increase your sales or being seen to be ethical, but you also have to use legislation. Look at plastic bags. We didn't voluntarily give up plastic bags. We gave plastic bags up because they cost 5p. If we didn't charge, 5p is nothing, but the fact that you had to buy one made people think, oh well, I would do without. If somebody just said, oh, don't use plastic bags, but they're free, we probably wouldn't have had that effect that we did. So I think it has to be a multi-pronged attack, from legislation above and from consumers below, pushing things along. And it will happen slowly. It can't happen overnight. Businesses that are just struggling along can't afford to give a great big sea change and suddenly become green. What they need to do is they need to start to look and perhaps invest longer term. And for example, rather than go out and buy an electric vehicle now, they would say, when our current vehicle falls over, then we will look at investing in an electric vehicle. So you can actually help to justify the cost on a renewal rather than just buying it because it's there immediately. So these things will take years and years to catch up, but eventually they will, because they have to.
So what's the next question follows on from that. So what are the key steps? What are the key actions for businesses, manufacturing and engineering businesses, to become more greener and environmentally sustainable? So I'm going to pick on Helen for that one. So I know you've had a lot of experience in this area. So
yeah, I think there's a number of things that people should do pretty much which way they're things that you can ask for support, especially for small businesses, is getting expertise in, and that doesn't just have to be people who already work there. We at Cinder Hill Farm, in fact, I see that the MTC is on here. They came and supported us in terms of looking at our production systems. Zoe also came to do waste audits for us. And I've obviously recently been brought into the business. So it's getting expertise in. It's a big topic. It's not something that you can necessarily just, it can be a bit of a, easy one to chat about, because we all read about environmental improvements, we all see stuff in the news, but can we actually make those changes? So I think getting expertise in is really important. And there are people who support you. There's support for free, there's support you can pay for, but it's really important to get a variety of ideas coming into you, to look at what opportunities you have. Reducing waste in any engineering or manufacturing process is a really important step, and that helps you reduce your cost, increase your productivity, and usually reduce physical wastes as well, or energy waste, which in turn supports the environmental side. I also really strongly believe in bringing your employees along with you. It's a story that everyone needs to be able to tell, because they also need to be able to spot when there are improvements. So it's again, for a manufacturing or for an engineering firm, whether you're in a design office or you've got physical products in front of you, individuals should feel enabled to say there are improvements that we can make. And we should assess these. And they might be really simple things like introducing scrap metal bins. So we have someone in our team, we did a training day, and 2 days later she came to speak to me and she said, we've got some metal that we can't put in the recycling. Can we get a scrap metal bin? And that seems so simple, but it's them having the opportunity, as someone who's in a production environment, a general member of staff, being able to say, I see something that we can do better, and acting on those as well. There are obviously bigger ideas that take much longer in terms of understanding your strategy and linking it to longer term costs as well. But I really think that your employees can help bring you along that journey. The more young people you bring in, the more people are going to be watching YouTube videos on sustainability imprints, who are going to see things that they think, this is something that we should be doing, or they might have complaints and things that they think are not being assessed correctly, or you've got people who have many years of experience who are coming from different sectors. They're able to tell you these are the improvements we made in another industry and this is how we're bringing it in. So yeah, for me it's really people-based, this system. Your key actions are to get experts in to help you, and then to enable your employees to shout up and say there are improvements we can make. So for me, people are really vital for doing those first steps. And it may be that you find there are things that you can easily change, or there are things that you need to sit down, look at your term strategy, understand your investments, and make decisions on when you're going to be putting your money in certain improvements that will bring those longer term benefits as well.
No, I totally agree with that. I'm on par with all of that, and it's one of the things, especially with continuous improvement and lean manufacturing, that's often missed, which is the environmental impact that it has. That actually, when we're saving time, when we're counting the time that we've saved or the money that we've saved, quite often with that there is the sustainability element that we've actually, we will have reduced perhaps energy, we may have reduced overheads, we may not be using the machinery or the equipment, keep it running for as long, keeping the building open as long. We're getting more out for less, essentially. So, and I think that quite often within the CI and manufacturing world, we kind of particularly because I've worked in CI in manufacturing all my life, and it's almost like the sustainability reporting is treated as something completely different. And quite often I've had the environmental person come up to me when I've worked inside a business and said, oh, they've been doing their annual report, and they're like, can you just tell me, you know, they're trying to just scramble together some numbers, and they're like, can you work out for me from any of your continuous improvement projects when you may have saved some energy, etc. And we kind of scramble in to sort of pull it together at the last minute for their report. Whereas actually, you know, I believe that, you know, you can combine the two objectives, you know, and the two are not, you know, it's not one without the other. It's whenever we look at where we're improving efficiency, what impact is that having? You know, how can we measure that from a sustainability point of view?
Yeah, and I think also it's the bigger picture. It's not just what you're doing on site, on a facility. It doesn't matter whether you're in an office or in a manufacturing environment, you know, or now working remotely, obviously, for many people. It's the whole picture as well. You can't just look at what you're doing for that one task. So what are all your inputs and what are all your outputs to your business? It's a really simple thing to look at, but really important. And you can make efficiencies within those that also then help the environment. So very simple thing that we do, all of our deliveries, the products that come in, so this is meat products for making sausage rolls, we now en route collect meat from local farms, take it to our butcher, and it's all part of our, once we've finished our main delivery route, it means extra cars are now not out on the road, and it means that we're able to support that way, and we reduce our carbon footprint for the miles that our meat takes as well. And then when we head out, so we're taking a vehicle, it's not a full vehicle, we support other local businesses and we take their products with us all the way up, if we're going to T-Bay, for example, to any of the Scottish locations as well. It's really simple to think of your work or your business as produce or doing one activity, but there are so many inputs and outputs to that business. And I think looking at that whole picture and understanding what the efficiencies are across all of it are really important.
Yeah, completely. Thank you. Duncan, I'll pick on you next for this question. So what do you think the key steps are and actions to help businesses and to help manufacturing and engineering businesses become greener and environmentally sustainable?
Right. Yeah, main steps. I think again, there is this two-pronged attack. There is the regulation from above, and there is the need to appeal to the customer below. Obviously, there is grant funding. I see grant funding for various projects, but even then, when grants have been made available, and you think you're offering them a no-brainer as an investment, there's still resistance. So I think that there has to be pressure on all fronts, especially where you're dealing with SMEs that are probably struggling and struggling along. If you're in a profitable business, it's much easier to be seen to be green because you've got profit there that you can invest. But how to help small businesses, it is a difficult one. It's a slow burn, I think.
Yeah.
We just have to keep pushing and pushing to push them in the right direction with A, regulation, and B, the need to appear sustainable to their customers. I mean, obviously, if you're supplying within a bigger supply chain, if you're supplying the automotive industry or the supermarket chain, there will be pressures for you to be sustainable. So those are all examples of things that will push people to have to become more sustainable. But I from my experience, you do have to push people, whether it be through regulation or whether it be through buying pressure from below.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the regulation just needs to change. I'm also a believer that we need to kind of, push the good points as well, so, and that, that actually you don't have to do everything, do you? You don't have to, invest in the, if you're not ready to invest in, I don't know, a fleet of electric vehicles or a few electric vehicles, or invest in those PV panels yet, or make those large investments, but you can still make changes, in terms of, like, obviously I talk about lean and efficiency savings and, energy savings. There are lots of things, looking at the lighting in businesses, that can actually save money, that are not big costs, but can actually save money, and trying to get those businesses to then report those benefits as well. So, and that might just be that first step along the journey. That's my hope anyway. So. Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, Daniela. Sorry, you go. Sorry, I didn't see. I was watching Duncan there. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. I would like to share something. I'm here since this last December now. So here in UK, I could say I come from France, and in France there are lots of ways people are moving through this sustainability aspects on their processes, on their production, on their manufacturing. And as you all said, like in Ellen's case, for example, yes, and what Tiffany says, right now people want to eat, to choose, and to purchase, I could say, something more greener. And in France, as you said, there are lots of let's say it, legacy from the government, so they push in different ways, and people are trying, since 2000, no, end of starting of 2000, I was always, for example, choose to buy something more bio for my family. So it was expensive at that moment. And 10 years later, you can go to the supermarket and you can find all those products that may be even cheaper than the normal one. So it means that something is in movement. And when you choose, for example, your computer, or you want to change your car, for example, in France now, they said, okay, all the vehicle that is in this old, when you change it, you have to take a new one, and they grant people, and it's like big movement they are giving, and it start to change. And if you are a SME, if you start a new business, if you decided you go green, you decided to be sustainable, it's not just being green with electricity, or it's about reducing the cost, how I work with my of the people, and they started from this part. I came from a big company, a big telecommunication company, and I see how they change a thing step by step by step by step. So the sustainability is really for each company to find out the issue that matters the most for the company and work on it. And the day after, and the day after, and everything will change. And yeah, it's on the way. But I think it's kind of being intelligent enough to see where the next investment will be. For example, in France, there's a hospital that started to be green 10 years ago, and they choose everything from the light, from how they use the water, and how they put everybody in it, in the planning. And it's the only hospital that is green right now. And I was with them, and I talked to them since I was involved on the project in one way. It was interesting, but it was a long-term investment they put for the hospital to be green. Yeah. So it's possible. I know that it's possible, but there are different ways for people to look at it and say, yeah, if I'm old, I have to invest, and then it's difficult for me to gain, to be, how to say it, to gain money anyway. But it's possible. Yeah. But I think the thing is to take one issue and another one and another one and another one, and never forget why the company is in business.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And it's aligning it with those business values. Yeah.
Yeah, and the people, when you have like you, Tiffany, when people are coming to joining a company, they want a sense, they want to be happy inside, and if the company, if it's clear that they want to go in these sustainability processes, people will be involved in it. And we are not all working as what you say, we all work together. It's not you and me, it's really everybody together. We try to co-create everything and see how we could go further with all the issue the company is facing. And there are lots of ideas over there. And yeah, working with some startup, working with schools, there are lots of things.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and it's so important. I mean, it's so, if you get your employees behind you, if you get, you know, that buy-in, and quite often by tapping into those core values, that's where you're getting that buy-in, and that's where you can get that momentum, and you can get things done that, you know, that aren't so much hard work. Like sometimes when you're trying to do changes, it can seem like hard work, but if you've got people on board, if you've got their hearts and minds, you know, that is like the biggest thing that you can do to create change. And I think, you know, you've touched on an amazing point there, and Daniela, which is, you know, if you can align it with your business values and your employees' values, then you can really get that kind of push behind something, and you can achieve anything really once you.
Yes, for example, I was on R&D part. I was cluster of all the access network technology, and I was surprised to see that we were working with different other startup, and the idea that came from it. And we talk about sustainability at that moment. It was 10 years ago already, or maybe more, and now we find it. But at that moment we talk about it, and we were working on all of that. So it means that this movement we are in didn't start now, and we see this consumerization. It's like here in those in the country, you know, I work for Africa, for example, and they don't have what we have, and they don't have the same problem as where we are now. But here in those advanced country, we have a way of thinking of our life, this comfort we are all in. But if we look really, if you look at it, you will find that even us, we are part of this movement of sustainability in our everyday life. You see, for example, I go to the market and I buy things, and I have all those packages. I have to throw them out, and then I have to put them, and you know, so those are a big cycle we have to have. But I don't know, here I didn't find it, but in France, for example, you can go to the shop and you don't have any packaging.
Yeah.
You see, there's lots. Yeah, it's developed everywhere now. You can go and have your own bag and pick everything, and then in your waste, you don't have to waste anything. You see? So it's kind of, it's possible, but it depends on all the government is in, since they will push people to do something or grant of something else, and it will change. But there are individual engagement on this, and in the manufacturing and engineering part as well. So it's possible. It will depend on how people are looking at this, and it's not, it's money. Of course it's money, but they can, it depends on how people are, how the companies are seeing it, and it will work. I know that it will. There are lots of success. In France, it's the environment that I know the most. So it's possible. It's possible,
I agree completely. What I'm going to do, because the last two questions actually, you know, we're getting on sort of later. We've covered them anyway. It was, you know, what's the benefits of sustainability in engineering and manufacturing businesses, and what part do employees have to play? So I think we've discussed that. What I'd like to do is go through the comments in the chat, and if any of the audience and the guests want to sort of join in, you know, if you want to take yourselves off mute, you know, feel free, you know, and jump in. This is just quite open now. I'm just going to go through the comments, and if anybody wants to jump in, just jump in. It'd be great if some of the guests could jump in. We'd love to hear from you if you want to take yourselves off mute. So okay, so I'm just going to ask, is it Gaurav, is that how you pronounce your name, is it?
Hi Zoe, yes.
Hi. It is, yeah. I just wanted to just double check, so it's Gaurav, yeah. So yeah, you've made a great comment there. So in the 15 years of working, you've only come across 3 female engineers. I can believe that. When I studied engineering, I was the only female in the whole of the manufacturing, and I did manufacturing and mechanical engineering, and I was the only girl. That was 20 odd years ago, so I can absolutely believe it. I was completely surrounded by men in the whole unit or whatever they call it. So and they've been the best colleagues that you've ever worked with, so they have a different mindset and always bring rationality to the discussion. And it is that balance, isn't it? We need that balance. It's all about that different way of looking at things, and it's, you know, and it's great, I think, the work that Tiffany does, you know, to sort of help bring and nurture, because like Tiffany, I mean, you've given me some shocking statistics. I know we've spoken in the past about how many women, you know, are trained and then drop out of engineering because they don't feel as if they fit into engineering because of gender bias. I don't know whether, you know, you want to sort of mention that. That's
yeah, if I can remember it correctly, I'm going to get this wrong. I'm really bad at remembering numbers, but something like 57% of female engineers drop off engineering by the age of, I'm going to say 47 or 45, compared to 17% of men. So 57% of women drop out of engineering by the age of 45 compared to 17% of men. Wow. So yeah, there's all sorts of different reasons for that. But yeah, I guess, you know, you touched a bit on what the benefits of sustainability could be to the manufacturing and engineering industries. One of them is, you know, attracting women who are looking for a job in engineering that is aligned with their values. If you are just a manufacturing that is there to make money, that's absolutely fine, but maybe you won't be attracting that diverse amount, you know, the diverse talent, and especially, you know, the generations coming into the workforce today, they want a meaningful and purposeful job. They are choosing to not work at, you know, the companies that are knowingly harming the environment. So that's, I guess, a side benefit to sustainability in engineering as a whole.
I completely agree. I think just you'll see, and it's the same, we've talked about startups, you know, and there's a comment just at the bottom of the chat around being disruptive and disrupting competitors. You know, people are looking for jobs that make a difference, and I think being able to show not only your credentials in terms of environmental sustainability, but in terms of all aspects of sustainability are really important for all engineering and manufacturing firms. I like the comment, kind of thinking of the Tesla effect, you know, inspiring people to make changes and to show that differences can be made, and it comes from having obviously diverse workforces, but also leading by example and showing that you can be different. I think for us, even as a small business, it's really important to show that changes can be made. We might not be investing the most in environmental improvements, and that's just because of how we are as a business and what we have access to, but it is making it a place that people will want to work. They'll tell their friends that they would want to work, and also it shows up the bigger competitors. When you line our products up next to some of those, I won't name some of the larger competitors in your sausage roller kind of industry, shall we say, you know, it's making sure that we lead by it. And if people are looking for a product of a certain type, you know, if they're a distributor, that they know to come to us. So the actions I would say that we didn't really mention before is how you present yourself online is now so important, and doing all these changes is good. Hopefully you're not greenwashing, hopefully you're not saying you're doing these things and just shouting about them, but I do think it is vital to get diverse workforces in and to get diverse customers as well, and to improve your business standing is to make sure that we are sharing what we are doing when it comes to environmental and sustainable changes, and to be quite loud and vocal. I think it's important learning from other businesses. It's important to be able, as I said before, go and be nosy on their website, see what people are up to, because they'll give you ideas, but it will also lead to good things, I think, for your own company. So I do hope people see this as an opportunity not only to make money or to save money, but as you were saying, to get the right people in, and to make sure that we are really disrupting that market and coming up with products that people want and will continue to want for a large number of years.
Yeah, I agree.
I think for all of this, there's part of educational, like you say, be noisy somewhere. It's kind of educational part, which is really important for all company and for people. And then they will understand, they will know, and they will go on it, and they will choose. And how could they choose this company if they don't know more? But if they know more about what they are choosing and why they are choosing it, they could choose the right company for them, you see, the right product, the right thing. But there's really this part of educational part that everybody has to go in. The company, the consumer, and all the stakeholders of any companies too, to understand more the effect and the consequences and the gain they may have when they go in this sustainability orientation they will take for their company.
Yeah. Okay. No, yeah. So sorry, I was reading the chat.
Please go.
So yeah, no. I'm sure I just kind of took my mind off there. Sorry, you caught me. I got caught out there. And I was just, yeah, Helen just raised a good question, because I've got some, I was going to go through the chat, which I'll try and bring bits and pieces in. But what I think I would, I'll do is I'll open it up to maybe Minash and Gaurav, and if you've got any, if you want to talk about any challenges or anything that you want to raise. I've seen, you know, you've both raised a couple of points there, but have you guys got any challenges or anything that you want to discuss about environmental and sustainability? I don't know whether Gaurav wants to sort of go, because I know there's been some interesting comments that you've made there, particularly around, oh, sorry, I'm just scrolling through, but you made the comment about how businesses can change from like supporting businesses, and that it's going to be a slow change. What's your opinion on that, Gaurav?
For anything to change, it can't happen overnight. And if there is no support network in place, then there will be reluctance from the businesses to change their ways. If there is a grant for the greener initiatives and also processes in place where the government picks up the metal, for example, or some e-waste free of charge or something to help either recycle more or reuse more, then people and businesses will start to think differently. Also, there is not a lot of know-how within the industry sometimes, and most people go to one person, that's health and safety inspector within the company, who is the source of information. So it's not a common knowledge to everyone what we should be doing, what we should not be doing, why we should be recycling in a work environment. Bring it home, and we know that it's good to do the recycling. We go step into work and we are like, oh, I don't know what to do. So I am not taking the responsibility. So it's a big mismatch there, where you get, I would say, bombarded with information from your local council, to be ethical at home. And yes, we are all ethical or trying to be, but in the work environment, there is work pressure, there is peer pressure, and somehow we drop the ball and we don't think the same way. So that's where the business mindset and individual mindset has to change. There has to be a support network in place, and government needs to also step in, because individually we can't fix this problem. It is the willpower of 7 billion or 8 billion of us that can change things gradually.
I'd like to, I guess, add to / challenge that, because from having this discussion today, I can see a lot of parallels with trying to drive sustainability in engineering and trying to drive diversity in engineering. Both of them come with a cost and a time cost as well, so not just monetary cost. And that seems to be the most, I guess, the barrier that a lot of engineering business leaders can't overcome. It's like there's extra cost, there's extra time in order to do the right thing. And I guess from an individual perspective, I know, Gaurav, I totally agree. It takes everybody to do something about it. But I'd like to also encourage you to flip that mindset and think, yes, we can wait for legislation to get passed. Yes, we can wait for consumers to want a certain thing. But you also, every single one of us, has something within our control that we can do. So yes, although the big change and big shift will happen when everyone does something, you also need to remember the mindset of there is something within my control that I can do. If I'm not sure, if I think that something is like a process is not sustainable in my company, or if I think that something is not driving diversity in my company, it can be really easy for us to think it's someone else's problem, it's society's problem, we have to wait for legislation. But no, you can do something about that. You might not be able to change legislation, but what's a small thing that you can do? Yeah. So that's a more empowering way for individuals to think about it.
And you're right, and you do change legislation at the end of the day. Governments are the last to act, so it's on people power that it changes, and it's only when people's attitude changes do government change, and that's, and I'm a big believer in that. So people being vocal and, spotting things when they think, oh, we can improve that, say it, be vocal about it. I'm a big believer in that, and I think Gaurav just put his hand up, so go Gaurav.
It was a clap more than in appreciation to what Tiffany said, and I think what I have seen is some of the female engineers have left because, again, their ethos are different to male ethos, where we get into a meeting, we have a deadline and we all get heated up, and we tend to overlook a simple solution that is an ethical solution. And she would sit there in the meeting room saying all along, saying this solution would work. Needless to say that she's gone now, but it's difficult, and I feel that we need more women in engineering.
Definitely agree with that.
We're talking to a crowd here, so a very unusual crowd.
We got a bit of a, yeah. I mean, I organize, I sort of was organising this one, so yeah, I didn't even notice until the end. I was like, there's a bit of a gender bias, yeah, which is.
I do think as well as that kind of taking individual action on business. Well, I don't know if those listening in, if you have any influence or how big your businesses are that you're working for. But we, for example, are just starting doing the Corporation B accreditation, and finding something to measure yourself that is a national or an international standard that actually tells you you're not quite doing as well in certain things as you thought, and you're actually leading in other areas. It's really important that we, so whether you as individuals who are listening to this have responsibility for that or not, or to request that, or to highlight it, we need to be, and I'm sure Duncan's probably done, you know, in the auditing side, it's a way of measuring ourselves, and it is really important that we keep measuring ourselves. And if you are a small organization, you can take part in these external larger accreditations to kind of support that measurement side of it. And it links again, it's just like the diversity discussion, same with the sustainability. We can all make up our own metrics and do really well on them, but actually how do we measure ourselves in a way that is genuinely meaningful? And so I hope that people who listen to this, or who might share it with colleagues as well, if you're in a position to do this, is to find a way that you can measure yourself and potentially compare to other businesses, because that's really important, that we aren't just making our own metrics, as I said, coming up that we're doing great. I can see Duncan's nodding. I'm sure he measures a lot with all of his auditor for companies. I'm sure you'll have seen it as a vital thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, standard metrics, key performance indicators in energy, they're used regularly within most sectors, and you'll find that most sectors have got their own sector-specific metrics. Offices will be kilowatt hours per metre squared. The plastics industries or the potteries industries, they've all got their own energy metrics with which they compare themselves and compare others, and also get their climate change levy discounts for. So if they can show a reduction in their relative metric. So yeah, absolutely. You can measure. And you don't actually need to get on board a fee-paying organisation. It's something that you can do yourself. You can look at your own performance and make up your own key performance indicators, or whatever you want to call them, to certainly judge yourself by. But it is useful to look at worldwide or national norms, so that you can see whether you're on track or you're behind or you're ahead. So yeah, you've got to measure it before you can do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly.
You talked about B Corp there. How are you finding B Corp?
It's an interesting one. So for those who don't know, it's an accreditation. I don't know if it started in the US. It's definitely very prevalent there, and there is a UK version of it. And a small number of businesses you might see have this accreditation. There's a little symbol, and it's quite an extensive set of questions that you have to provide evidence for, or rate yourself against, and there are standard answers. You can't just answer with how you would like. You have to select out of a multiple choice as to what level you're at, and there's a lot of gaps, obviously, that as a small business we've found that we've had, and there are things that as we grow, it's really useful for us to understand what some of those gaps might be. As we go from a 15 employee company, maybe we'll, in the next 5-10 years, we'll get up to 50. And how do we do that? And how do we do this in a professional way? And that accreditation is a really good way of doing it. And environmental impact is a huge part of it. It measures financial, social and environmental impact. So I think I mentioned before the triple bottom line. You have to use that in order to get this accreditation. So you have to report on all three of those pillars. But the questions are in depth, and it's really important to push yourself as a company. And I think this is a way of us not just saying, we're an eco farm, we're an eco business, we're doing all these things, but actually measure ourselves in a way that we could get an accreditation. Again, a consumer might find that really helpful when they go and look at a variety of products. They may pick ours out because we've got accredited in that way, but it also helps us know that when we employ people, when we work with people, suppliers, we have that feeling that we know we're doing the best that we can as well.
Yeah. It sounds good. That's one of the areas that I'm looking at the moment, is B Corp. So yeah, I'll probably be on the phone and sort of be picking your brain.
A lot of questions you have to go through, a lot of them.
So I want to, Jill's just put in the comments that a carbon footprint can be calculated by Ian and McCloyne, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and he's a sustainability consultant who works with the shows as well. What I'll do is, so and I just want to go. Minash, do you want to take yourself off mute? Are you happy to talk, or it's up to you? You've put lots of interesting comments in there, and then I'm scrolling through thinking which ones do I pick up, because we're getting late on in the day, and I noticed that you said that you wanted to connect with some of us, and that's great. So if you want to sort of introduce yourself and say a bit about yourself, and anything that you want to add, what you feel, if you want to add anything or ask any questions, go ahead, because we haven't given you a chance to speak yet. So if you're happy to do so, I understand if you don't. So.
Thank you very much. No, it's been interesting listening to all of you. I'm actually a consultant in international trade. Yeah. Actually basically trying to, I think, help businesses to actually optimize the supply, the logistics, a supply chains for sustainable supply chain. And listening to what you've all been saying is actually fascinating, especially Duncan, because you tend to find sustainability, people always try to use cost as an excuse for not embedding it into their supply chains. And yet, unless you're sustainable, you don't have a long-term survival, because sooner or later it's going to catch up with you. I've been dealing mainly with corporate companies, and a lot of it is greenwashing, especially when it comes to big corporate companies. They say they're sustainable, but when you look down the supply chain downstream, they're not sustainable. And it's actually just trying to educate people that unless you're sustainable, there are repercussions. It might not affect you directly, but it will affect your business in the long term. So listening to you all has actually been quite fascinating, because I always think business, it has to start with businesses. Consumerism is actually driven by businesses. The products and services you offer will drive consumerism. And until the businesses change what they're actually doing, then you can actually shift the behavior of consumers. For instance, I used to work for a big corporate company, in logistics, and we're shipping a lot of waste coming out of Europe. And yet we're saying we're being sustainable, but you're not being sustainable because you're just shifting the problem from us to somebody else. And you think you're being sustainable, and that is not being sustainable. So it's for people to change the mindset and try to realize their actions have an impact on somebody down the line. So I would love to connect with all of you. I'm actually doing a project with a small businesses, the Federation of Small Businesses, where we're trying to map what initiatives small businesses are actually putting into place and how we can actually help them to embed that into their businesses and change the shift of always thinking of cost, but thinking of what are the returns if they invest in that cost.
Yeah. I always try, and when I do my reports, they are always based on, here is the saving. The first column is, here is the cost saving, here is the energy saving, here is the carbon saving, okay. Here is the cost, and here is the payback. And you have to present it in that way. So obviously we try and encourage people to embrace those initiatives. I mean, it may be, as Zoe said, changing the lighting to LED lighting, something really obvious, something really quite cost effective, but commercial businesses, they just want to know that bottom line. So I dress up my carbon reduction reports as a cost reduction report to actually try and get them to do something. Yeah, I agree with everything everybody's said. I've actually got a question. Alex Miller said that I've got a boomer attitude. I'm going to take that as a compliment.
Scroll past that one.
Before we can.
I only just saw it, so I would have. I don't quite get what he's saying there, but sustainability is about whole life cost and doing. And I think no, I totally agree with that. I was simply reflecting the attitude that I see from small companies. So I don't disagree with anything. I wouldn't be here talking to you if I didn't agree with what you were saying.
That was just a millennial comment. I think.
yeah. I've got a boomer attitude. I'm going to go and Google that.
Millennial. We'll have a sort of we'll have a little war, a generation war going on now. So talk diversity, now we'll sort of argue and discuss generation.
I think there's possibly a difference here between an idealistic attitude and the attitude of somebody like me who's 61, who's knocked around a bit and has seen the real world. And in the real world, things take a lot more. You do have to use the carrot and the stick, and you do have to use lots of different things, and things take a long time to change. But we have to keep on, have to keep going and going and going.
Yeah.
I think the pandemic has shown what we actually can do, because we've all done things that we never believed that we would do.
Absolutely, I agree with that completely. I mean, in terms of change, you know, for so long, like, you know, people have just been going along with how, and I think, you know, just how things have already been done. And I certainly think this pandemic has made people stop and think, realise that, well, they have to do things differently. They've got no choice. We've all had to change and adapt. You know, we've had absolutely no choice. But also, I think a lot of us have reassessed our values. I know I have, and I've had so many conversations with people, you know, where we've started to look at, you know, well, you know, what are our values and what's important to us, and connect with, you know, people and the world and the planet and everything else. I think that's been, you know, something that's positive that's come out of this horrible situation, perhaps. So.
Yeah, it's got me on Zoom.
Yeah, today.
I've only just joined the 20th century.
Yeah.
I can't believe you've avoided it for so long.
Amazing, amazing. I'm impressed with that, actually. You've managed to avoid Zoom this long. That's quite impressive. Okay, well, I think I've just having Jill given me the kind of, yeah, we've got 5 minutes, you know, 5 minutes sort of wrap up, because this will just switch off, I think, at 5 minutes. So, yeah, so has anybody got any quick questions or anything last minute adds that they would like to sort of chuck in? Because we're probably going to wrap it up now, because we're going to run out of time. So, no. I'd just like to sort of thank everybody, and we'll connect. I think the question was about connecting. Jill, in terms of connecting, I mean, I have wrote down some names, and do we have people's details, or how?
Well, I think, Minash, I'm not sure I got the right details for you, because I've got a different first name, so I don't know. But if people are happy, what I can do is I can send out the emails from both the panel and from the bookings list. I'll only send it to you guys. It won't go out any wider than that, but I can let you all have that so you can contact each other. If you'd like me to do that, yeah, I'll do it after the meeting.
Yeah, you happy with that, Minash and Gaurav?
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
No problem. Perfect.
Okay. Minash, I don't know if I've got the right email for you on the booking though, so I think it's got.
I've just put in my details in there.
Okay, perfect. All right.
I'll just put my details.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'll share that out to everybody after the meeting.
Thank you very much.
You can find me on LinkedIn as well. So if anybody's got any problems, just contact me on LinkedIn, and it's just Zoe Darlington, and I'll answer any questions and connect anybody to anybody. So anybody that you need to be connected to. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody, to all the panelists, and you know, for you know, coming along, especially because I know we did arrange this a little bit last minute this time, and that's fantastic that you all kind of stepped up and jumped in, and the guests as well. And thank you for turning up, and I've really enjoyed this. So thank you very much. It's been a good conversation.